Hello, everyone. Hoping all of our audio is connecting in. It's lovely when everyone comes into the room, but you have to kind of wait for everyone just to tune in and get their audio right. So it's great to see everyone. I can still see a few people are connecting through to the audio there. If you can hear me, it will be great if you can pull your chat up. Just say hi, where you're coming from. Is it raining? Is it sunny? You know, the normal thing. I have to say, I'm very British. So, of course, I love to talk about the weather. Um, it would be great if you wanted to just join in and chat weather and location with me in the chat room. Oh, Nicole, thank you. Sunny Bedfordshire, I'm loving it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And while all the hellos are coming in, just to say, I am so excited that Jan has actually allowed me to kind of host today. I've been hearing so much about the blended stories, and it's really exciting to be part of the discussion, part of the conversation with you today. So my name is Laura Overton. I'm normally based in Wimbledon. In London, it's London, England, for anyone who's here from America, and or Ontario. But today I'm actually talking to you from an equally sunny Spain. So I'm very excited to be here with you today. So Guru, hello from Barcelona as well. Yes, it's a truly international conference that we have here. And what we want to do today is to look at the subject that we've come to discuss, to explore it together. And that's the whole idea, is that we're sharing our stories together. So Jan, I'd just like to say thank you so much for allowing me to come in and enjoy this space with you. But would you like to say a few words about, well, basically what you expect of me today? No, just love to invite you to kickstart the conversation today.
Well, thank you very much, Laura. And the word allowing, wow, it's more of an honor for us. So thank you very much for not only joining but willing to lead the conversation today. The conversation is going to be very exciting. I already know that. The first part, however, of our regular attendees know this. There is always the word of the sponsor, and yes, I'm the sponsor. So I'm going to share my screen for your 3 minute overview of the what Emissio actually does. And let's start this with a kind of a quiz. Who remembers what Emissio actually stands for? What does it mean? Answers in the chat, please. So let's see if our regular visitors actually remember anything of what I say. There is this forgetting curve, not only a learning curve, and I just want to test this. Um, not sure that's a clever thing to do at this point. So I am going to share my screen, and that means that there's my screen here.
I love it. Raj
There
has come
were
in quickly there for you.
I can't see the chat at the moment, so I rely on. I'm going to ask my colleagues Kayur and Raj also to help me out with the chat and maybe answering to see if they can help with that. Make more training impact. That's what Emissio does. Emissio stands for. It's Latin. It's a Latin word and stands for blended, and that's a lot of what we do, blended learning. But it also stands for mixed. And one of the things that we definitely are is we are a mixed team. And that is one of the things I really enjoy about the business side. And that is a mixed team really gets you a lot of different angles, different views, and really much more creativity in the business. So in Missio, so what do we do in as a Missio for training providers? Training providers, we help them with quality and with quantity. Quality means that we design blended and online learning. We create that. We help you deliver that through platforms. Impact measurement, big topic, not only today in the conversation, but strategically for your training business going forward. The quantity side is we help leadership of training companies to scale their business. Usually that means workshops on business modeling, launching new products, entering new markets. And our most favorite one actually is pricing strategy, different pricing models. Our principles, we truly believe that training is a people business, and the technology is there to scale and assist. And what we actually do, learning platforms, content, and there's all the services and consultancy around that. Now, one of the things that we are really proud of is we like an evidence-based approach. And that means on the left-hand side of that screen, that we either do research, we commission it, we share research, but we also collect case studies from our customers, for example. And then we share that with the community. So community, and that's what we are doing here today. Training provider community. We have this evidence-based approach, as I mentioned. The training provider community, we do this in two ways. Through these webinars, this blended story webinar is every month. It's always on a Tuesday. It's always at 12 o'clock. And we also do a conference. And the conference is next month, actually. Today is the 17th of September. It's exactly 1 month away. And the Business of Training Conference, we'll talk about that a little bit further as well. That's really where I wanted to stop.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And we're also joined today by Julian from Sea Salt Learning, Julian Stodd. I'm just wondering, Julian, if you'd be willing to introduce yourself a little bit as well before we get into the discussion.
Of course. So I'm happy to be here. I'm a writer and researcher. So my work is evidence-based, but also quite forward-facing, sometimes speculative. Some of my work on learning science at the moment, looking at social metacognition and collective capability, draws on the things we're certain about, but also exploring how things are changing as new technologies come in, something I think we'll touch on today. So I tend to look across both leadership and learning at the intersection of formal and social systems. So my work in learning is around social and collaborative models of learning and the types of capability that we build in organizations. And I suspect I've been invited here because my last book was on generative AI and specifically looking at impacts on learning, both from the organizational and individual perspective. So I'm down in Bournemouth in the UK, which is also sunny. So good to be here.
Well, thank you so much. And today we're going to be looking at how AI changes our content strategy and impact measurements. So Jan and Julian, we're expecting you to work super hard in sharing some of your stories today. But before we go forward, it would be great to know in the chat room what you're looking to get from today. What kind of questions have you got on your mind that you would like the next 40 minutes or so to give you just a few answers? So if you'd like to just take a moment to let us know in the chat room, that will be great. And while you're doing that, just to let you know that my background is also in research, but hopefully not too many graphs and data. But over the last 20 years, I've been really exploring how organizations can drive impact through the way that they use technology and innovation in their learning strategy. So yeah, it's been a very interesting 20 years, and it seems that everything is going faster and faster. So yeah, please share your thoughts in the chat room there. And in the meantime, what I'd like to do is just to share my screen with you for a moment. To look at let me just get this for you, to look at the information that you've had in your blended stories webinars before, because we've asked questions before now all about how you used AI for your own work, how you use AI in your own environments. And last time when you met together, you were asked, How often do you actually use technology and AI yourselves? Now, this was in May, so the graphs could be all over the place. Now, I'm not going to ask the question again, but it was very clear that more and more of us were using technology like AI, generative AI, AI-driven tools every day, once a week. And there's a few of us who hadn't tried it yet. We also asked the question about how are you using technology in your role? And it was very clear that the highest proportion were using it in terms of improving business effectiveness, the way we connect and engage with each other, and productivity, but also marketing as well, how we kind of connect and engage with those that are using our services. And from a perspective of course design and course creation, more perhaps on the course design front. Well, the question wasn't asked, but I guess that if we did ask you how often you saw AI in your social media feed, you pretty much say it's every single time that you turn on your laptop or go onto LinkedIn. So this is a piece of made up data, but my instinct is that probably most of us would say that we're seeing it all of the time. But today what we want to do is hone in on this area of how do we use these technologies in content and course design. Julian, tell me, where do you see technology being used the most at the moment, or where do you see as the opportunity for using AI in the way we do learning design?
Well, let me answer that and try to bring in some of the questions as well coming in the chat. So broadly speaking, I think we see two categories of implementation of AI technologies. And there is, of course, not just one, there are a whole raft of technologies coming through. The first is organizations doing the thing they have always done, but using these technologies for efficiency and optimization, either directly or because it's being packaged into what suppliers are giving us. This is a natural kind of first stage of implementation. It's either stripping out cost and complexity for a supplier, or it's stripping out complexity and streamlining usage for an end user. So efficiency and optimization is useful, not necessarily revolutionary. It's change within an existing market. The second way we see it is highly asymmetric, and that's individuals and often smaller startup organizations using it to disrupt established categories of doing work. So this is people who are creating new domains or experimenting rapidly with different ways of doing things. And for me, this is the more interesting side of the application, because often what is being done steps around the boundaries or borders of what came before. If we looked at that in terms of learning from the perspective of an organization, we see that things that used to be quite complicated, used to be quite difficult, can become much easier to do. So it's much easier for us to analyze and draw value out of data that is created within training sessions or within learning experiences. Where we're asking people to create stories, we can do analysis of those stories. Where we're asking people to interact, we can analyze the interaction. How we do this is interesting. Whilst the technologies can make it easier for us to do these analyses, it raises the importance of understanding what is valuable. The general principle is, don't gather data unless you know what you're going to do with it, if you're going to do something with it. So it won't help us if the new tools just allow us to gather all sorts of new data. What we really need is actionable insight. So that really is where my focus lies with these things at the moment. Quite a sort of practical level, what can we do with generative AI, which will allow us to draw greater value out of the engagement of learners, both to provide feedback to the learners, but also insight for the organization. And we can talk about that more maybe when we look at stories in a minute.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Jan, what about from your side of things? How are you using some of these tools? You talked about the role of impact and design. So yeah, I'd love to know if you come off mute and share with us.
Well, thank you. There's quite a few different cases and practical applications that we see. Not just ourselves. We use AI, for example. Actually, this is a good example. We're in a Zoom session, and Zoom does a meeting summary. You have a lot of these tools now where the notes of the meeting are much more accurate. And what I actually love, there are also some of these tools that analyze the meeting participants and how active and engaging they were, and how active and engaging the meeting went, and therefore how productive. And that's a great use of AI. So as a participant, learn how I can maybe make a better impact within the different meetings that I do throughout the week. Last time it told me that on Tuesdays it was my best meetings, and Thursday mornings were my worst meetings for some reason. The other example, one of our customers told me the other day that they use, so customers, training providers, they told us that creating a new course for them was a process that would take 6 weeks. But now with the use of AI, creating content, they brought that down to 2 weeks. So a third of the time. And that enabled them to create more courses, so their portfolio expanded, and also more specific courses for specific audiences. So that's a practical example how it saved them cost. And my concern in that is that also not subject matter experts can now create a lot of content. And I always talk about the bland sausage machine that AI also could be, which is you're going to get a flood of training content out there that is supposed to be e-learning. With AI, you might create an engaging learning journey. But if you're not a subject matter expert, you might not know if AI tells you something that's wrong. And therefore, you're publishing content that's maybe not correct. And I think that also has a threat in it. So you're going to get lower prices because you get a flood of content. You don't know if it's true. And that means for training providers that trust of the brand, curation are much more important topics going forward. So just some thoughts on that.
And it would be great to actually see if anyone would like to come and share some of your ways of actually using some of these tools directly in your organization. Apologies for the Mentimeter. It was working, of course, immediately before and now immediately after it's not. So I'm just going to go into old fashioned. Let's kind of engage with that, with the conversation. So if anyone would like to either share in the chat or in the room about how you are using some of these tools to support content creation, then that would be great to actually hear about that. In the meantime, if you pop your hand up, just let me know. Just come off mute. That's fine. In the meantime, I don't know whether you guys have seen the work by Dr. Phil Hardman and looking at instructional design. And she did a really interesting experiment where she actually gave one instructional design program to 3 audiences, to a series of an expert instructional designer who knew what it was that they were doing, a novice instructional designer who had the chance to work with AI to design a program, and also with an expert instructional designer who also had the chance to look at AI. And then she put out the instructional design opportunities out to everyone. About 200 instructional designers around the world all looked at this work and they rated them. And actually, the one that came out on top, and Janta, this is to your point, was that in terms of the most insight, the best design, the best learning objectives, the clearest opportunities were those experts who were using these tools. The ones that came up next were the novices using the tools, and actually the ones that didn't score badly, but they didn't score as highly as the others, were the actual tools that were the novices that were actually, or the experts not using those tools. So I think it really helps us to look at some of these examples there. Some great opportunities coming here. Sarah, would you be willing to come off on the line and talk about when you've got to plan something quickly and get the create? Because I so relate to that. How are you working with those tools to do that?
Hi, so my name's Sarah Stapleton. I am a very small independent trainer working mainly with GP practices for their admin staff. And I recently got asked to do a 3-hour training program for apprentices working in GP practice on data protection, GDPR and confidentiality, with kind of like a 2-3 day turnaround. Whilst it is a subject I talk a lot about and do a lot about, my brain just wasn't in that mode. So I actually use chat GPT or whatever it's called, and just said, can you just do an outline plan for me? And this is the criteria I want, this is my audience, and it just does that outline plan so that you can just, yeah, right, okay, I've got it, this is how I'm going to do it. And actually to create some scenarios, because don't know about anybody else, but I get blocks where I'm thinking I want to do a scenario for them to discuss, but I can't quite think what the scenario could be. So I actually use it quite a lot to develop scenarios for me, which is fantastic because it also gives you what that you expect them to say, you know, so that you can prompt them, especially when you're dealing with sort of youngsters who would prefer to use something like Mentimeter or Slido or something like that, and you're trying to encourage discussion. So that's literally when I've used it. And because I know enough about the subject I'm asking it to plan for me, I can quickly see where, well, actually don't think that's quite right, or I'm not going to put it in like that, or so yeah, found it quite useful actually.
Yeah, that's fantastic example there. Julian, I know that you use the tool as a thinking partner, don't you, as well?
Yeah, maybe if I just say a little about stories, because I guess we're talking about blended stories, and think about some of these questions as well that we've got coming in here. If I start, stories in learning are important, and it's probably worth remembering that a story told is not a story received. So there are lots of different ways that we can use stories in learning. And it's useful to think about them in 3 different levels. One is the organizational story. That's often what we're tasked with doing. Take something, some story, some information, some knowledge, some ideas, and give it to people. This is a kind of broadcast mode of storytelling. At the other end of the spectrum, we have the individual cognitive activity of storytelling. So we learn about the world through stories. And that is something which is constructed within our heads, the story of our own knowledge. In the middle are our co-created and collaborative stories. And that includes what happens within learning cohorts and groups that are learning. It includes the influence of culture and existing knowledge on learning. So between these 3 things, we see various tensions. The story told by the organization, the story is learnt by the individual, and all of the sense making and meaning making that goes on within a group as they do the learning. Now, when we think about the impacts of technologies on this, it's quite interesting that there are classes of social collaborative technologies, which is anything from Zoom to WhatsApp to your very expensive LMS or learning experience platform. There's all sorts of technologies that allow us to be together. But the technologies themselves don't give us the social interaction. So social interaction, social sense making, the ability to learn together in a group, is founded upon finding trust with each other, a sense of identity, a sense of belonging, sense of purpose, and sense of pride. The social currencies govern the effectiveness of social learning communities. But what technology can be is a partner in dialogue. And dialogue is a key part in the creation of the co-created stories, but also the individual narratives. Now, historically, dialogue has been an expert feature, expertise, having access to somebody that knows more than you, that has done more than you, has wider experience than you. We've had to find those people. We've had to have some of their time. We've used that in conversations to workshop stuff within communities to learn more. Generative AI is inherently a dialogic category of technologies. It's about dialogue, but it's dialogue with a machine instead of with a person. So it makes dialogue something which is essentially commoditized and can be deployed at scale. So one of the key impacts of generative AI will be allowing us to build dialogue into scaled learning opportunities at the individual level and finding ways to use it at the cohort level as well. Now, at the individual level, it can give us a partner in thought because it's not judgmental. So we can ask those daft questions. We can explore multiple versions of a truth or an idea. We can use it to draw in extra sources. So helping people build the skills and capability to be in dialogue with generative AI will clearly be important for a modern learning organization. At the group level, at the cohort level, one of the most interesting things we can do with these new technologies, and I put this under the heading of generative AI for $1 or less, something that you can do super easily, is using the tools to create reflective surfaces for groups. And a reflective surface is where we take the dialogue, the story created in the group, and we analyze it to find points of tension or difference or distribution or gaps. I'll give you an example of that because I was working on it over the weekend. Been working in an automotive company doing work on their culture, and we're working with individual employees and we're working with leaders and getting them simply to write postcards to each other. So a postcard is a version of a story. It's a story I want to share with you. It's about employees raising concerns and it's about leaders responding to those concerns. So at one level, it's useful. We generate hundreds of postcards from individual employees up to their leaders, and we generate hundreds of responses from leaders down to their individual employees. And it looks pretty good. But when you analyze it, you can ask something like Claude.ai, one of the pretty robust generative AI tools, to look at the emotional tone of the postcards and to identify quite simply gaps in the data. And by doing that, what I see with that group is some broad trends. Leaders tend to paint pictures which are very broad and wide and holistic. They use energetic language much more than calm and reflective language. Members tend to raise quite granular concerns. They tend to mention something very specific, and the leaders very rarely address the specific thing. So somebody raises a particular issue and the leaders respond with a broad category as an answer. And this leads to a frustration. Now, I was able to sort of tease that out just by focusing on asking questions, feeding that data, just pulling it quite simply into a couple of Word documents, throwing that into Claude and saying, not what are the similarities, but what are the differences? Can you tease it apart? What are the emotions that we're seeing? What's the sentiment behind these? So very simple approaches, working within that structure of individual, co-created and organizational narratives.
Brilliant. That is really interesting when you talk about dialogues there. And so many things are kind of popped into my mind about what you're saying about how we might use some of these tools to explore stories that we might like to use to engage with others, but also explore stories that are being told within the organization and to look for opportunities and differences. The application of that in leadership programs and leadership training, it's completely different perspective on 360 degree feedback there. I'm wondering whether or not I might bring Janine into the conversation. Janine, I know it looks like you're on your iPhone, but your comment in the chat was also about dialogue, and iterating on content and having the technology ask you questions. I'm wondering whether you are in a position to be able to share a little bit more with us about how you are dialoguing with technology yourself in that environment.
Yes, sorry, I'm in the States, so I'm out walking my dog right now, so I won't be able to come off
Brilliant.
camera.
Brilliant. But welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I think overall, in terms of the AI side of things, it's been a bit hit or miss. I think as I'm thinking through a topic or refining my messaging, I always like to start with the prompt, here is some general information, maybe feed in a summary to AI, ask me 10 to 20 questions to get the clarity you need on this. And the questions will tend to be pretty formulaic, but going through several rounds of that helps identify where audience members might have gaps or where it might be too technical. If it's, the AI can't go and find it with all the sources that I've fed into it and it's still struggling to make sense of it, that tends to be a pretty good indication. Okay, this needs to be simplified. This needs to go through probably not a double click. We might need 5 or 6 clicks into this. And I think where it's been helpful, from an inclusion perspective and just being able to do things a little bit faster. The synthesis technology, I don't love a lot of it, but I do love being able to work with a large group, whether that's 20 people or 300, 400 people in something like Miro, using different sticky notes and having users, with some training for the users to throw notes in different colors, have AI go through, sort those quickly, and then start synthesizing that information and looking for trends. And then I'll do the nuanced work there, but it's ballparking it. So being able to get feedback from 200 to 300 people in a live meeting and synthesize that in 10 to 15 minutes, if I can turn over to a co-presenter or something and start to extract those themes, makes a world of difference. One, just for that divergent thinking and getting more voices in the room, but being able to capture more feedback from individuals who would be less likely to speak up in something like raising their hand and having their voice heard.
Yeah.
I think it's been helpful. So it's a combination of some of the tech and training users, in a highly specific way to jumpstart not necessarily generative AI stuff, but underlying categorization, and then kind of bouncing back and forth, between the
Yeah.
two, which has been helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So pragmatic as well. And Julian said he uses Claude.ai. Is there any particular tool, Janine? Sorry, you've just gone off again. That you
No worries.
use practically to help you do this.
I've been trying different ones out. I haven't found one that I am all that impressed with. So I think, it starts with a P. It's not Perplexity. It's something like that.
Right.
Google Gemini has been okay. Chat GPT has been okay. I've been, if I have time, so in a live session, I won't do it. But I'll bounce back and forth and see if I get answers that are actually more accurate. And I haven't seen one tool that's giving me wildly different answers than another. But I think ChatGPT has probably been the best at giving consistent questions. As I'm using it as a thought partner, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I think it's mainly just prompting it and saying, okay, ask me 20 questions. Here are my answers to this. Ask me any more questions that you need. And I think ChatGPT has been the best at just coming up with those succession of questions.
That's great. So it's a dialogue tool that's also allowing you to dialogue with the technology, but also improve the dialogue that you have directly back with the organization. So really appreciate that from you. Jan, I'd love to include you into the conversation again, because we're talking also about how we design and the role of story. And it's great to see Carl here as well. We can talk about the way, all the things we've been talking about so far that are really how allow us to connect into the way that we as human beings learn and connect and remember things. But what about value? What about driving impact? How have you been using some of these tools, or how are you thinking about using the tools, Jan, to think about the way that you articulate value through your learning services?
Well, value for training providers sits in different places, I think, depending on their own skill sets. Design is definitely something that's in there, but design and creation, and actually, if you look at it, and delivery, more and more becomes one decision. Most training providers, but I think that also plays in L&D. Uh, Content and the platform of the place of delivery are quite often seen as two separate decisions, but that is now not the case anymore. And it hasn't been for a while, although people are still getting used to it. For example, if you are looking to do adaptive content that is personalizes the learner experience, then you can build that into your content. However, more and more platforms are building that in as a feature as well. So the decision to create content that you can personalize or have that already done by the platform, depending on how many courses and content you create, is now one decision. You can look ahead and you can say, okay, I'm going to create this many courses. It's much easier to create a standard course that the platform then enables you to personalize. So that decision making is definitely one element of how that affects. And we're talking about AI here, but AI is not the only technology, of course. So we need to make this a bit broader. And that is where a lot of this difference can be made for training providers. I'd like to give Carl, sorry, we're calling you out, Carl. I don't know if you're up to actually speaking, but it might be great to weigh in on this as well.
Yeah, so I've been, for training providers, I think there's a great opportunity to really take a step up in terms of the kind of evidence-based approaches they can take to the design of their learning. So I've been on a bit of an exploratory exercise to see how well mainly ChatGPT can help me bring evidence into the design of what I do. And I've had kind of a bit of a word of caution, a kind of a limited amount of success. And I think one of the things that I'm seeing is that when I'm trying to say, take a piece of learning and then say, look, you can apply some evidence into the design of this learning. What recommendations can you bring forward, and various other things like that. I'm seeing it just working. I'm seeing a lot of myths coming up. Learning styles is something that keeps coming up again and again and again. So I think kind of the word of caution is, if you want to use AI to be able to, bring some evidence into the design of your learning, maybe at least get a bit of an understanding of how we learn, and get a bit of an understanding of learning science in order to validate what the AI is producing, because in my experience, it's a bit hit and miss. But I have only been using ChatGPT. There may be other solutions that may be more up to the task.
I love that, Carl, because I know that the work that you do, people like Lauren and Stella Collins, are really kind of looking at how we learn as individuals and how our brains work. Just some simple things, getting our basic understanding up and correct in that area is going to be so vital. The role of spaced repetition, the role of reflection, but just knowing a few of those things, then we can be more specific, can't we? When we're asking other tools, can you help me? How could you help me build this into this environment or this scenario? Sarah was earlier talking about the different scenarios or stories that we can create. So I think that's a really fantastic example of bringing our expertise to this and learning ourselves about what's needed and being able to go, because a little bit allows us to be in much smarter dialogue with the technology itself. Have you actually done any of that side of things, Carl? Because I know you must have thought, okay, you might give me general advice, but how do you handle this? Something I know.
Well, so a case in point is that I've got myself a new role. It's a fractional sales role. Got a lot to learn in a very short period of time. So I've been engaging mainly with ChatGPT to see how it can help me in that learning process and what evidence based approaches and what science-based approaches I can use in that. So I have been trying that out, but again, it's been a bit hit and miss in terms of the return there. So, but I have at least I have a base understanding of what I'm looking for. So that's helped me weed out the myth from the truth. So
yeah, brilliant. I mean, I'm very conscious of the time that we have available together, and the kind of these stories kind of like explode, don't they? It would be great if you've heard anything today that you may think, actually, I'd like to experiment. I'd like to try something. It would be great if you would be willing to share that in the chat room, so that we can kind of maybe learn also from each other. I would just give a couple of observations as well about how we might use some of these tools in understanding the impacts. If we actually talk about reflection with Carl, about asking our audience, asking our learners to kind of reflect on how they might use this idea that you've been training them on in the future. And that then also gives us a sense of being able to come back to them, be able to analyze that. All of these are steps towards us understanding the impact that we're making on people and as individuals as well. So, there's different, just little practical small things I think that have been flying up throughout the conversation today. And it would be great to see which ones have stuck, which ones have resonated through with you in the chat room there as well. So, but before we close off, Julian, what would be your kind of final recommendations or some practical things that we can do to generate blended stories and use AI to actually help us to do that?
Well, I think, bearing in mind that we're short on time, I'll keep it simple. I wrote a piece yesterday about speed of understanding that said, historically, we've been rewarded for looking at something new, putting a context around it and believing that we understand it. I think that our speed of understanding is the enemy when it comes to really making progress with these new technologies. We should be diversifying the sources that we listen to. We should be experimenting. We should be looking at the things we're confident about and taking them apart. We're clearly just at the very start of this journey. And I think the onus on us is to remain uncomfortable and uncertain and to find communities in which we can do that exploration.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Jan, any thoughts from you?
Well, my last thought on this is that UK training providers, they turn over cumulatively about £3 billion per year. The threat here is that AI, if you don't do it properly, or you don't start climbing that hill, start playing with it, that 3 billion could easily turn into 2 billion. However, I think there's also an opportunity, because not only training providers, also L&D, so your customers are looking for answers. So 3 billion could also turn into 4 billion if you're adapting quicker and do it well. Yeah, find your subject matter expertise and how to play the niche, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I think what my observations from today, and to thank everybody for kind of connecting and engaging, is the fact that there is a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of hopes, there's a lot of fears, and we're journeying together, which is why I think it's fantastic that those of us who are based in the UK, Europe, there's an opportunity for us to meet together on the 17th of October to maybe explore some of these things in more detail, have a chance to really learn together, to experiment together. We're going to be looking at impact, we're going to be looking at partnership, we're going to be looking at learning design, but most importantly, we're going to create the space to allow us to learn from each other as well. So if you're able to get involved with that particular conference, it would be great to see you there so that we can continue this conversation. We can only scratch the surface of a few ideas in an environment like this, but thanks to you, we've been able to do that. And we're also going to be looking at partnerships as well, and conducting a study at the moment to actually look at how we partner with our suppliers and how we partner with our providers. So do let me know or follow me on LinkedIn if you want to get involved with that study as well. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, and thank you, Jan, for inviting me to come along and share the experience. I've learned so much today, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
And that's it.
And that's all for today. Thank you so much, Laura, for hosting us today. And we look forward to, in 4 weeks, seeing hopefully all of us again in person on the 17th of October. Till then.
Thank you.